Dear joueurs, this is Fred and welcome to this demonstration of Great Western Trail by Alexander Pfister, who is the author of Mombasa. So you can imagine that it will be very, very good. In Great Western Trail we are actually cattlemen who are going to deliver cattle to Kansas City and different cities in the US. That's the basic of the game. What happens in a normal tour of each player, you just move, here it is, you just move your cattleman through the path, through the country. A little bit like in Kailus or Egizia, and you just go one way, you cannot go back with your cattleman. And you execute the different actions on which you stop. I'll come back to that in a minute. The aim of each time you go through the board is to get to Kansas City here to be able to deliver your cattle to the different cities. What does it mean concretely? Delivering your cattle is, well, first you execute, you take the different craftsmen, engineers and cowboys and you put them back here, but I'll come back to that. You deliver concretely your cattle and you get money for that, and then you put one of your personal pieces here on the board on one of the cities if the value of your cattle is big enough, in order at the end to get either victory points, either objective cards, potentially giving you victory points as well. How do you deliver your cattle? You actually take your own cards. I'll come back in a minute on how one tour goes, and you just add up the sum of the value of your different cattle, knowing that you cannot have two of the same. So here I've got two jerseys. I just remove one and I only count one. Meaning this one is worth 12, for example. So I just discard the 12 and I get the equivalent in money, and I put one of my pieces on the 12 or below if I was already on the 12, because you can only have one piece in each city. That's really the delivery of the cattle. How does it work concretely? So when it's your turn, you've got to move first your cattleman. You can move by 4 positions at the beginning, later on maybe more. You just go through one line, and for example you stop on this one. Each time you cross a hand, a green one or a black one, this is an obstacle. You have to pay either to the bank if it's a natural obstacle, here water, or just the desert, or if it's a building built by another player, just like here, I'm the red player, this is a blue building, a yellow building, you pay to the player owning the building. Once you stop, either on one of your buildings, either on one of the neutral buildings, just like here, the green ones, you can execute the action at the bottom of the building. What are the different actions? You can either, well, build new buildings, you can buy some additional cattle, so that means it comes in your own deck. That's an important point. At the beginning, each player has all the same cards, but during the game you will add on new cattle, and you will potentially even remove some. So that's also a little bit a deck building, but a little bit, but still it is important. You can also remove from the board natural obstacles, which will give you points at the end of the game. You can try to buy objective cards, the same, giving you points at the end of the game if you fulfill an objective on the cards, and potentially giving you negative points if you don't fulfill. Those cards can also be received if you have, for example, 2 adjacent pieces here in those 2 cities. You take 1 objective card. You can also move your train, allowing you to go to stations here, getting either points, either bonuses tiles. All those ones are already used. but at the beginning you've got those tiles here, and whenever you stop in one of those stations, you pay the amount here and you get the bonus. And you have to put one of your engineers or one of your craftsmen or cowboys, and you get the bonus either immediately, either at the end of the game, depending on which kind of bonus. So you can do many different things with the action, and each turn, each player takes his turn and move first his pawn, then takes the action, and so on until he arrives at Kansas City to deliver the cattle. So what we have here is clearly a big game. It's no game for beginners. That was the author of Mombasa, I remember you, so it is good, it is great. It has really a sense of, I would say, a little bit of sense of urgency at the beginning, because you need to go quick for the bonus tiles. But after that, it's really optimization and developing your engine. So you need to get enough money to buy new cattle, for example, to optimize your deck, but also to do creation and to build new buildings. So it really it starts slowly and then it accelerates. You have this feeling of building something. That's great. Last one, big point, important point I need to mention, personal board. On this one, a few additional features. You've got on the left your personal actions, which are the only actions you will be able to do if you stop on a building which is not either one of your buildings. If I'm the red one, I stop here, it's not one of my buildings, and it's neither a neutral one. I cannot play the action here, I can only play the actions which are on my personal board. Then you've got those small pieces which are put in the stations or in the cities. Whenever you remove one to use it, you get the action available, or you get the bonus. In this case, at the beginning I can move by 4 steps my cattleman. If I remove the piece which has a beginning on it, I can take 2 additional movements and 1 more here. Here you've got the certificates, allowing you to increase the value of your herd. And here, very important, you've got the cowboys, the craftsmen and the engineers, and they will allow you to maximize the power of the action, the relevant action. For the cowboys, for example, that's obviously buying new cattle, new carts. You see here on the board, if you only have 1 cowboy, you can, for example, buy a cart worth 3 for 6. But if you have 4 cowboys, you can buy a cart worth 5 for 6 as well. So the more cowboys you have, the more powerful this action will be. The same for the craftsmen used to build new buildings, and the same for the engineers used to move your train across the rails. At the beginning it's only 1 movement, but if you add up 1 engineer, it's 2 movements each time you take the movement action. For the train, 3, 4 and so on. Below you also have, in some cases, bonuses which are immediately actionable each time you hire a new craftsman, for example. Here, if I put it here, you execute the bonus. At the end, you scored many different ways. You scored for the money remaining on your side. You scored for the value of the buildings. You see top right, you've got number of points for each building. You score for all the pieces you've put in the stations. You score for, in some cases, for the pieces you put in the different cities. You scored for some cattle which have points on them for the cards themselves. You scored for the objectives cards. Here 3 points if I fulfill this objective. And you scored here if you get a 5th or 6th craftsman, cowboy or engineer, it's 4 points. Plus 1 or 2 additional here 3 points, and maybe a couple of others. So what do we have in summary? Clearly a fantastic game, again not for beginners, far from that, with a very learning curve which is not negligible, because at the beginning you have very few buildings, very few skills, so you need to progressively increase, so the building of the engine is very important, and really fantastic game, so I would only say one thing, enjoy.